Hi, I'm Karen Morgan. I'm a volunteer with AARP Maryland, and I'm here with a bonus interview in our series of social media interviews tackling things related to elder fraud, abuse, and prevention. And we tackle different subjects in this series of interviews. So far, we've talked about door-to-door scams and investment scams and peer-to-peer payment apps. And today we are going to be talking about check washing and bank fraud generally. And we have two great guests with us today. I'd like to start out introducing Evan Richards, who is the manager of government affairs with the Maryland Bankers Association. Now, the Maryland Bankers Association represents insured community, regional, and national banks, employing more than 28,000 Marylanders and holding more than $180 billion in deposits over 1,000 branches across our state. I think that's a lot of money, Evan. Wow. Okay. And members of the MBA provide a wide array of financial services to Maryland residents, including residential mortgage lending, business, banking, estates and trust services, consumer banking, and more. So, Evan, thank you so much for being with us. We really appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to talk to us about bank safety. And my next guest is Robert Hyde, and he is the Fraud Operations and Physical Security Manager for the NASA Federal Credit Union. He's actively worked in the financial security field for the past 32 years, and you don't look a day over 33. That's awesome, Robert. Robert is an association of certified fraud examiners. He's a certified fraud expert and the executive chairperson for the Maryland Association for Bank Security. Robert is a member of the Maryland and the District of Columbia Credit Union Association's Credit Union Fraud Roundtable, and he's also an advisory board member for the Thompson Consultant Group. So, Robert, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to be with us today.
Thank you, Karen. Enjoy being here.
We really appreciate you coming on here to talk about check washing, because that has been so much in the news, and just bank safety with bank failures and different banks in different parts of the country. And, people are just wondering, is it safe to put my money in a bank? And is it safe to send a check? And what the heck is check washing? So for our audience, let me start with you, Robert. Can you please explain for our audience what check washing is and how it happens?
Basically, Karen, check washing is when you write a check like you normally do to pay your utility bill, your mortgage. You put it in the usual mailbox at the end of the drive, or the blue postal mailbox down the street or in front of the post office. Unfortunately, the bad guys, girls, I'll just say it doesn't discriminate. They know that you have this trust in the postal service. So what they're actually doing is stealing the checks, your envelopes, out of the mail, either at your mailbox or literally out of that blue mailbox that's sitting at the end of the road or the post office. Then what they do is a common chemical, basically acetone. They are taking that to dissolve your ballpoint ink off of the check. And once that's removed, they then write the check, higher amount, payable to somebody else. Usually it's somebody they recruit that's a mule, who will then walk into your bank to cash the check. So if you wrote a check for $150 to pay your BG&E bill, 2 days later, it's magically payable to, Fred Smith for $7,000. And you think your bill's paid until you look at your account and you realize, where is all my money?
Not only so that creates a huge problem. So Evan, how are banks equipped to protect consumers? What do banks do about check washing, for example?
Well, when it comes to protecting consumers, what banks are really looking out for are those suspicious activities that a customer may have when they walk into a branch. That's with the way that the banks are able to detect these fraudulent checks. That's a really new technology. That's the way these checks are washed. It's a way that would clear, you know, basic bank safety. So it's one of those things where they look for folks who may be attempting to cash a check with someone who's using a different ID, or someone who may look a little nervous about cashing a check. They're looking for things like that.
Mhm.
So that way, if they see that, they're able to report it and start a proper investigation.
Okay. So, and let me ask you this, because a lot of people deposit checks, remotely. They'll use their iPad or a computer or even their phone to deposit a check. So, I mean, does that make things harder for banks in terms of trying to determine whether a check is really valid or not?
It absolutely does, because when they first take that picture to move it in, it's one of those things where banks may be reliant upon the customer to keep track of their expenditures and see if there's some sort of mismatch to what the customer thinks that may be going out, compared to what the check actually did.
Yeah, I would say it's very
Wow.
important that
Okay.
people pay attention to their account activity.
Right. So you need to, I mean, you really need online access to your bank account. That's the only way that you can even get close to seeing what happens to your bank account in real time. And usually a check that's been presented is pending before it's posted. And while that's pending, that might be the time, if it looks weird or something that you didn't do, to contact your bank and to say,
Mhm.
what's going on here? But calling the number on the back of your debit card or your bank credit card, don't Google the number, because that could be the wrong number.
I would say Googling it is you'll get the website of the bank or the individual credit union. That's great. And you have to remember, one of the advantages of using online banking services is that you'll get to see the check pretty quickly. You can look, most institutions will offer you click on it, you can see the image of the check. So even if it's the right amount, you want to look at it and go, wait a minute, I didn't write that check to Sarah. I wrote that to the doctor's office. And then you want to call your institution and say, hey, I have a problem.
Hmm. Right. And a lot of checks will have duplicates in the back. So, when you, at the time that you're writing the check, you have an automatic duplicate of, like, say, check 1001. But if you see check 1001 in your account and it's made out to somebody else for an entirely different amount, that's your clue that something weird has happened. Right, Evan?
Mhm.
Oh, absolutely.
So let me ask you, Evan, what kind of tips can you provide to the people watching this broadcast, and just to people in general, about how to keep their money safe in a bank? And let's just get to the elephant in the room. Is it still safe to deposit my checks in a bank? Is it still safe to put my money in a bank?
Oh, it's always safe to put your money in a bank. That's the safest place for your money. When it comes to tips to keeping your money safe in your account, it's a matter of keeping personal information private, not sharing information with those who don't need it. When you're getting these spam calls or text messages, being sure that you're able to look through and think before you act on some of these things, because of the fact that the majority of them are fraudulent. um, Not keeping personal information out and about, shredding receipts and bank statements that have personal information on them. Never letting someone pressure you into making a financial decision. Things like that. Considering multi-factor authentication to log into your bank account, to make sure that they're able to verify that's actually you logging in. One of the things that you can look at, and as you see on my background here, I have it up above my head. The American Bankers Association has partnered with the FBI on a few initiatives. One of them being their newest program called Banks Never Ask That. Something that they've had for a few years. They've just completely revamped it. You can actually go to banksneveraskthat.com, and it'll give you tons of tips on how to protect your money against fraudsters. And these are when it comes to these tips they give you, that's bank employees are trained on these tips. So that way, they're trained to know what you're looking out for, and they're also trained to look out for it on the other side.
That is a great tip. I love that idea. Banks never ask that, because you kind of feel like banks might ask you anything, but no, they really won't ask you. They certainly won't ask you over the phone to verify your personal information because they already have it. If it's a legitimate account, they already know who you are. So why are they asking you who you are?
Yeah, Karen.
And generally speaking, a bank won't contact you. Unless you ask them to contact you first, a bank will not call you. So usually when you see on your phone, if you're looking at your caller ID, that a bank's name has appeared and you did not reach out to them, or more importantly, you don't have an account with them, don't answer the phone because it's not a real call.
Yeah. What were you going to say, Robert?
I was going to say that a distinction for those attending this session should keep in mind is if you're calling your institution, your bank or your credit union, we will ask certain questions to verify it's really you and not little Johnny down the street pretending to be you. Right. If we're calling you to confirm something, we will not ask those kind of security verification questions. It's going to be a very short call. It's going to be, hey, we see something suspicious. Did you make this credit card transaction? Did you write this check? Yes or no answer. Once you give that, hey, I didn't do it, the institution knows what to do. They're going to start processing it as a fraud claim and work with you to get that resolved. We should not be on the phone for 2 or 3 hours asking all kinds of inane questions, which is really the person, they're just like data mining. They're trying to find out everything they know can about you so that if I call Evan at the bank, I can relay everything and then verify myself as you.
Right. But what can be confusing for people is this notion of a bank might call you. If you've reached out to the bank and then the bank wants to verify your information, that totally makes sense to me because I'm the one who initiated the call. But the idea, there have been scams that have been perpetrated by people getting a call from a bank. And maybe maybe they have an account at their bank and they answer the phone and it's like, well, there's something going on with your account and we need to verify your information, but it's not a real call. So that's what can be confusing for people. There might be times when a bank does reach out to ask you. Well, let me push. I was going to say, let me push.
Go ahead. Sorry. There's that delay in here that's messing me up.
There is a delay. Sorry for that, folks. So I was going to say, if an account has suspected fraud, let me ask you, Evan, how will banks reach out to people because texts are suspect, emails are suspect, phone calls are suspect? What do banks do to let people know that there actually is fraudulent activity in their account?
So generally speaking, most banks do have an alert system that the customer will be notified somehow, whether it be through their online portal or if you do have a suspicious purchase that will show up on your account. I know when I made a purchase that a bank thought was suspicious, I received a short little text message and it basically said we received this for the exact amount at the exact time, and I was able to confirm that that's the case. One of the things that you have to look out for, though, is banks do communicate with folks this way.
Yeah.
Look for things that may make it fraudulent. One of the things that I see a lot when I get spam text messages, words are misspelled. You have to look closely to make sure that the information that is being shared with you is accurate, because the majority of the time it's not. So if you're seeing that amounts are wrong, if you don't have an account with a bank, if you're seeing that words are misspelled, you're receiving a fraudulent text and you shouldn't respond to it.
Right. Right. So Robert, let me ask you, let's get back to check washing. So I mean, you mentioned acetone, which is another
Mhm.
name for nail polish remover. So that's pretty commonly available at
Yeah.
your local drugstore. So I'm pretty sure I have some here. But I just use it to remove fingernail polish. So what can a person do to prevent the theft of their check and to prevent washing of their checks?
Yeah, probably, there's different things out there. I know there's some of the pen manufacturers advertise that their pen will defeat check washing. I tell people be careful of that, because if I've stolen your check, it has the data I need to steal your money. It has your bank account number, it has the ABA number. Some people even have their name, address, and phone number on the checks. So I can easily duplicate that with the computer and make a check, print more checks. I always
Mm,
advise people that, if you must still use checks. I know a lot of people love writing checks, maintaining their finances that way. I'm guilty of that myself. Um, don't put it in your regular mailbox at the end of the driveway and leave for the day. Don't drop it in the blue mailbox at the end of the street. Actually, take it into the post office and drop it off. Um, these guys, they're hitting the boxes in the middle of the day because they've known
mhm.
people have gotten smart. Well, I can't put my mail in the mailbox after 6 o'clock because it's past the collection time. Now they're just walking up. They've actually, this is how bad it's gotten. They've actually robbed the mail carriers. They don't want the bag of mail. They want the keys to those mailboxes
Yes.
that allows them full access
Yes.
to a whole range of them. Um, you know, I know we like
Right.
to write checks, but you might want to look at looking online bill paying services, setting up automatic deductions from your account, stuff that removes that vital piece of paper, which has all your banking data on it that the bad guys need. Just take it out of the system. Um,
Mhm.
that's one way to do it, that you could set up, just like direct deposit for your Social Security benefits or whatever. You can set up payments that takes your utility bill, takes out your water bill every month electronically directly from your account. And I know people getting online, you know, I always recommend use a dedicated PC for your online banking services, not the one that everybody in the house, the kids play on and God knows what they're downloading. You want to keep that like as secure as possible. This is my laptop. This is my tablet. I only use it for banking. I keep the virus software up to date. I don't allow people to go on TikTok or anything like that that may inadvertently download something and then compromise my bank information.
Right. That's really good advice because people will often have more than one computer in the household, especially if they're raising a family or whatever. So maybe
Mhm.
and Chromebooks are very secure, so you could use and they're also relatively inexpensive as far as computers go. You can get a Chromebook just for financial transactions.
Mhm.
That could work in a household. And I think, the online bill paying, that's a great tip too, because you want to get the check out of the way. You want to get it out of the stream, where people can intercept it. Because basically, that's what we're talking about. We're talking about people intercepting these checks. I
Mhm.
know I was in a position where I needed to pay someone. The person that I was paying really, really, really wanted a check. I'm like, do you have to have a check? And the person was like, well, yeah, but I'll take a credit card, but it'll cost you. And I'm like, okay, fine, I'll give you a check. But I put the check in the person's hand. It's like, this is not going in the mail. We can do this in person, or we're going to have to come up with something else, because I'm not putting this check in the mail. I'm not even taking it to the post office.
Mhm.
So Evan, if a person suspects that they're definitely the victim of a fraud, of a scam involving their checking account or their savings account, what should they do to rectify the situation?
The biggest piece of advice that I would give to someone first is simply don't feel ashamed that this happened to you. This is something that fraudsters are really smart. They've really gotten good at making things look legitimate. So if you fall victim to one of these scams, make sure that you're doing things like reporting it. That's your first go-to, is you have to report it to your financial institution. That being said, fraudsters move quick. So the moment that you realize that you may have fallen victim to a scam, you have to notify your financial institution, because there may still be an opportunity to recoup some of that money. The longer you wait, the more time a fraudster has to start moving that money around to where the bank can no longer trace it. If you're falling victim and you're starting to lose money, obviously you have to contact law enforcement. That's something that your bank can do. They'll more likely be prompted to submit a suspicious activity report over to folks like the FBI, who will go through and investigate these crimes. But simply taking the time to report it not only shortens the amount of time that the fraudster has to move around the money and you can maybe get it back, but you also have the opportunity to prevent someone else from falling victim of a crime. If they're able to use that money or use the information that you provide to stop a fraudster, that's going to mean a difference to millions of people. The FBI released new numbers last week that's saying that over $3 billion was lost as a result of scams last year.
Or stolen. $3 billion was stolen.
Increase over 2021. And this money's gone. So, being able to identify and report when you're a victim of a scam is crucial. And if not, that number is just going to continue to grow.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would say, Karen,
so
most of your listeners should check your customer service agreement, your member service agreement, wherever you bank and do your finances, and it'll tell you the time frames you have to dispute an item that's presented or something that's cleared your account. Because if you go past that time limit, the bank, the credit union, the financial institution, it's not obligated to return your money once you file the claim. So,
but that said, for most banks, it's a fairly long period, like 30 days or 10 days or 5 days.
30 or 60 days. It varies by institution. That's why I recommend you check that customer service agreement. If you're not sure when you're in the bank or whatever, just ask them, if there's something weird on my account, what's my grace period to report it? And, 6 months later, you're definitely out of luck at that point.
Right. And that's definitely something to keep in mind. Robert, I'd like to circle back to something that you said earlier. You said that people should be wary of pen companies that are advertising that using their pens can prevent check washing. But I mean, I've heard this too, that if you use a gel pen, the gel soaks into the fibers of the paper. So it at least makes it harder to completely eliminate the evidence of prior writing. Are you saying that that's not true?
No, what I was saying is the pens serve a function, but don't get lulled into that sense of security that, I'll never have check fraud because I'm using the gel pen or the high security pen. The problem is, like I was saying, your bank data is on that piece of paper, on that check. And I've seen them less than 24 hours of when the customers put it in the mailbox. Hey, I put it in the mailbox, Robert, at 8:00 last night. How do you know my check going to Pepco isn't going to be paid? Because I'm looking at a copy of it on the dark web for sale, and it's 9:30 right now. They're selling your bank information online. So the pen does work, but it's not a foolproof 100% guarantee, because that paper, it's a legal document. It has that important information of your name, your address. Thank you for giving us your phone number on the check. I've seen people put their driver's license on their checks because they're trying to help the clerk at the grocery store so they don't have to write it out. It has, most importantly, your bank routing number and your account number, those weird little micker numbers at the bottom of the check. That's the key piece right there to stealing your money.
Yeah. So Evan, let me ask you, we're winding up here, but let me just ask you this, a bonus question or a bonus interview. If somebody prints a check using their inkjet printer or whatever for bank.com or whoever it is, and it's presented to the bank, aren't there ways that banks can tell that that check isn't legitimate, that it just came off of a printer? Or are there ways that banks can tell that?
Well, there are most certainly ways. It's not, I mean, it's one of those things where I'm not familiar with that actual process off the top of my head, but they do have certain security procedures every time they receive a check that they may deem fraudulent. So they do have those internal policies in place. It's just one of those things where, along with that, they do continue to look out for signs of suspicion that something may not be adding up here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, most banks will have policies that say, Karen, if you wrote a check for $25,000, that's outside your normal activity. They may call you to say, hey, I see a check. You wrote a check to Evan Richards for $25,000. Is that legit? And it's important. I know we hate to, give phone numbers out, but your bank, your financial institution should have your up-to-date contact information. We need to call you to see if somebody's stealing your money. I personally think that's kind of important. I would keep my information up to date with my financial institution, so that if I get that call, I can immediately say, Evan, who? And immediately shut that process down.
Yeah. And I guess I also want to circle back to something you said earlier. You said it shouldn't be a problem to Google the banks. I know that we at AARP have said be wary about Googling bank phone numbers, because sometimes the fraud criminals who are doing this, even when complaints are attached to their name, there's so many complaints that wrong number trends to the top of search results, and the legitimate search result may be on page 2 or 3, the pages that people never go to. And it may which is why we say just go to the number that's on the back of your card. If you have a checking account, you're going to have a debit card, go to the number that's on the back of that card. That way, it's the real number. Google search results aren't always reliable. I will just say that's something to be wary of. Sometimes they are, but sometimes they're not.
Yeah, I think if you're Googling it, the main thing is look at that address bar. Does it say, NASAFCU.com? Does it say, TDbank.com? And not, Joe's Crab Shack.org, something
or
weird.
.ru, which .ru stands for Russia, or .cn stands for China, or something like that.
Yeah.
Which can happen too.
And you can check like the ABA, you can check NCUA, FDIC, government.gov websites, and they usually have a page which says find a bank, find a credit union, and you can go through the government website to make sure I'm landing at the right web page for that institution, or there's the phone number. .govs are usually trusted website. Okay, I'm pretty sure it is. Most of us probably know how to call our banks anyway. Call the number that you're familiar with to say, hey, Karen, I got this weird call from Fifth Third Bank. Why are you guys calling me? And they can look it up and go, oh yeah, we see there's a transaction they're trying to verify, or we have no evidence of what's going on. So that's your clue that, hey, I got a problem.
And to me, that's where online access comes in really handy. If you're looking, I check my bank accounts every single day, including weekends. Every single day. I check my charge accounts every single day, including weekends. And there have been times when I've seen a charge, like particularly a charge that looked weird, and I was able to call while it was pending to say, this wasn't me. I don't know what this is, but it wasn't me. But that's hard to do that if you're waiting for the monthly statement that comes to you through the postal service to your home address.
Yeah, I mean, technology has its advantages. Sometimes it has its dangers. It's just a matter of getting comfortable. Some of your viewers, they're using this little fun thing all the time. And
it's a computer in your pocket.
Yeah, you can use mobile banking. You can sign up for text alerts. So that if something happens in your bank account, boom, you get a ding, you look, $152 was just taken out of your checking, payable to, Verizon. And you're like, yeah, that's my phone bill. I'm fine with that. And then you go about your life doing your normal duties, having dinner with your spouse or whatever.
Right. And you can definitely set up alerts. And I know that you know this, Evan, too, to say if there's like a Zelle payment, I want to be notified. If there's an amount that's been cleared that's over $100, I want to be notified. I don't care who it's from. I want to be notified every single time. and people can do that with their bank.
Right. And I mean, the capabilities there are even, much more than that. Let's say you decide to go on vacation. That's happened to me where I was, halfway across the country and I woke up and there was almost $400 missing from my bank account. And I didn't go in and I didn't set up the, alert for a vacation because I didn't think it was necessary. Now, anytime I go anywhere, I do have it set up. So that way that payment can automatically be blocked.
Wow. Okay. Well, we're going to have to end it there, gentlemen. We are out of time, but thank you both so much for lending your incredible expertise and your valuable time and attention to this serious issue. This is affecting everyone, which is why we wanted to do this bonus segment during our extension of Protect Week. So please take this information in. Like I said, this is a bonus segment of Protect Week, and Protect Week is our deep dive into all things related to elder fraud and prevention of elder fraud. We have resources, we have social media interviews like this one, we have a teletown hall that you can listen to, and a kickoff press conference and articles from our partner organizations, as well as from AARP Maryland. So please go to aarp.org/MD for more information about Protect Week. And that information will be there for the foreseeable future. So if you weren't able to tune into this broadcast live, you can tune into it later and get this valuable information. Gentlemen, thank you so much for like I said, sharing your expertise. We really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Well, thanks for having us.
Okay, thank you. Take care, everybody, and stay safe out there.